You've felt it your entire life. The sense that other people are operating by a set of rules you were never fully given, that social situations others navigate effortlessly require effort from you, a kind of translation, a calculation, a performance that never quite feels natural, that you think about things differently, feel things differently, notice things others don't notice, that you are, in some way, you can't fully articulate, on the outside of something everyone else seems to be inside of. If this is you, you've probably spent years trying to figure out what's wrong with you. Here's the provocative answer. Maybe nothing is. The feeling of being different is one of the most common and least discussed experiences in psychology. Research suggests that a significant portion of the population, somewhere between 15 and 20%, consistently experience themselves as fundamentally different from the people around them. Not better, not worse. Different in a way that feels structural, like the difference isn't in what they think or believe, but in how they process the world. The question isn't whether you feel different. The question is, what is that difference actually made of? And the answer, when you look at the research, is more specific, more biological, and more interesting than most people realize. Here's the foundation. Psychologist Elaine Aron's research on what she calls the highly sensitive person, now one of the most replicated findings in personality psychology, identified a trait present in approximately 15 to 20% of the population. Not a disorder, not a diagnosis, a measurable difference in how the nervous system processes information. Highly sensitive people process sensory and emotional information more deeply than average. They notice subtleties others miss. They are more easily overstimulated. They feel the emotional texture of situations with greater intensity. And critically, they are more aware of their own difference. Because when you process more, you notice more, including the ways in which your experience doesn't match the experience of the people around you. The feeling of being different is not, in most cases, a distorted perception. It is an accurate perception of a genuine difference. The nervous system that feels different is different, not broken. Different. Here's the layer that makes it painful. Most people who feel different were never given an accurate explanation for why. Instead, they received one of two messages. The first, something is wrong with you. You're too sensitive, too intense, too much. You need to toughen up, calm down, stop overthinking. The second, more insidious, was no message at all, just the quiet accumulating evidence that other people found things easy that you found hard, that social situations others enjoyed were draining for you, that you felt things more than seemed appropriate, thought about things longer than seemed necessary. Without a frame, the mind creates its own explanation. And the explanation it almost always creates is, there is something wrong with me. Psychologists call this misattribution of difference. When a real neurological characteristic is interpreted as a personal failing rather than a biological variation, the person isn't broken. They simply never received the information that would have allowed them to understand what they are. Here's the mechanism that explains so much. People who feel different don't just process more, they process differently, with a bias toward depth rather than breadth. Where most people move across the surface of an experience, the person who feels different moves into it. Conversations that stay shallow feel not just boring, but actually uncomfortable, draining, like being asked to eat food with no nutritional value. Social performances, the kind of effortless small talk and easy belonging that makes up most of human interaction, feel like wearing clothes that don't fit. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on optimal experience found that people who feel most fulfilled are those whose environment matches their cognitive complexity, their depth of engagement. People who feel different are almost universally people whose cognitive complexity exceeds the average demand of their social environment. They are not failing to fit in. They are overqualified for the conversation. And being overqualified for something consistently across most environments feels exactly like not belonging. Here's what it actually costs. People who feel fundamentally different often develop what psychologists call masking, the conscious or unconscious process of suppressing natural responses and performing more socially acceptable ones. Laughing at the right moments, matching the energy of the room, moderating the intensity of your own reactions, performing interest in conversations that feel hollow. Masking works. It is often very effective, but it extracts a cost that is measurable and significant. Research on autistic individuals who mask at extremely high rates shows that sustained masking is associated with significantly elevated rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout. The same pattern appears at lower intensities in highly sensitive people and in anyone who has spent years performing a version of themselves that doesn't quite match the internal experience. The exhaustion that people who feel different often describe, the social fatigue, the need for significant recovery time after ordinary interactions, is not weakness. It is the measurable cost of running a performance that requires constant energy to maintain. Here's what the research actually says. The feeling of being different is not a perception error. It is not anxiety distorting your self-image. It is not social failure dressed up as specialness. It is, in most cases, the accurate self-perception of a nervous system that genuinely processes the world differently from the majority. And here is the hard, uncomfortable part. That difference will not go away. No amount of socializing will make you feel natural in environments that require you to process shallowly. No amount of effort will make masking feel effortless. And no amount of achievement will resolve the feeling of being on the outside, because the outside isn't a result of failure. It is a result of architecture. The real question, the one that matters, is not how to feel less different. It is how to build a life in which your difference is an asset rather than a liability. The people who changed things in science, in art, in understanding, were almost universally people who saw what others didn't, who felt what others couldn't name, who processed the world at a depth that made them strange to everyone around them. Not because strangeness is greatness, but because the depth that makes you feel different is the same depth that allows you to go further into things than most people can follow. That is not a consolation prize. That is a description of a specific kind of intelligence, one that the world consistently undervalues in ordinary contexts and desperately needs in exceptional ones. You were never broken. You were never too much. You were built for a depth that most environments never asked for. And the work, the real work, is not fitting in. It is finding or building the environments where that depth is exactly what's needed. If this video describes something you've felt your whole life, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the behaviors, the patterns, the things about being human that nobody explains.